Have you had enough yet of the Mars frustration time? That's kind of what this year is about. We started it off with Mars conjoining Saturn. That was on April 4th. And then Mars has been transiting Taurus for what feels like forever, since early July. Mars and Taurus can be kind of arrogant in its frustration, and also might want to cause trouble just for trouble's sake because it's so frustrated. The term brutality pertains to bestial, fierce, or cruel, and that's Mars in the sign of the bull. Imagine trying to reason with an angry bull. That's Mars in Taurus. Except Saturn in Aquarius isn't trying to reason with the angry bull, but is imposing restrictions. So there's still this like leaving versus staying thing that's been going on with Saturn in Aquarius. And Mars and Taurus can be mean. Mars and Taurus can be mean and stubborn, and especially with Uranus and Rahu, inordinately rebellious. It's funny, the word energy, which pertains to Mars, comes from a root ergon, meaning work, that which is wrought. It's difficult to get the work wrought with Mars and Taurus. And since it's been so frustrating, Mars may have wanted to force something with its recent conjunction with Uranus and Rahu, but now it hits a wall. And so with Mars squaring Saturn, that energy is controlled and restricted by Saturn. It's regulations. You could regulate your blood sugar. You want it even and not peaking. Mars in Taurus gets nothing done, or it wants to peak and break things, and Saturn wants to regulate. So if you can turn things into a slow burn, that can be constructive. But also a slow burn could mean, as I said in my last video, trying to light a log or a tree trunk on fire using just like a Bic lighter. The word control, speaking of Saturn, comes from a root contra, meaning against, and rotulus, meaning the wheel. And that reminds me of this scene from the before time television series Game of Thrones, which is no longer cool, but I don't care. I shall reenact it for you now. It's paraphrased. All the leaders are just spokes on a wheel. There's this one on top, then that one on top, and on it goes, crushing those on the ground. It's a beautiful dream, stopping the wheel. You're not the first person who's ever dreamt it. I'm not going to stop the wheel, I'm going to break the wheel. That's Mars in Taurus, squaring Saturn in Aquarius. Except the character who wants to break the wheel ends up dying, and Saturn is in the superior position. So the restrictions win, and the force, the energy, remains frustrated. And that sets us up for Mars transit of Gemini, which begins on August 20th. On August 8th, Venus opposes Pluto. This is a very interesting and potent, culminating aspect, considering all the stuff that went on in the winter with Venus. Venus was conjunct Pluto, meaning with Pluto, 3 times during its retrograde phase in the winter. That was December 11th, December 24th, and March 3rd. So what has culminated since then? What in your life is now pinging those same themes? Venus in the last part of Cancer really wants nice things, very special and carefully made luxuries and relationships. And Pluto in the last part of Capricorn. The last part of Capricorn is the administration, specifically, and Pluto corrupts what it touches. So that's very clear. I mean, we can all see it. It's blatant, outright corruption within the administration. Venus in Cancer wants these wonderful things and wonderful relationships cultivated over time. And Pluto, in the seat of power, being corrupt, somehow opposes that, or strikes a loud and forceful connection with our desire for nice things that we care about. I mean, Cancer and Capricorn can be what we care about versus what's practical. And Pluto in the third phase of Capricorn could be like an iron fist stating what's practical, or it could be masquerading as what's practical with unconscious or subconscious undertones of power struggle. Anything connecting with Pluto is going to have subconscious undertones of power struggle. So when we have Venus connecting to Pluto, that's in our relationships and pertaining to our desires. Makes me think of the first few lines of the song Sympathy for the Devil. And Venus connecting to Pluto in any way always makes us think of Beauty and the Beast. It's like imprisonment and desire together, an intensity that's all or nothing. Eroticism and magnetism, and all the dangers that can lie therein, in making yourself vulnerable to another party, especially if they're in the seat of power. And Pluto can pertain to things like humiliation and shame, and when that's coming from the seat of power, that's a way to exert control on a person or a population. Cults do this. Also, legitimate and good spiritual traditions do this, breaking down your ego, giving you humility. When this is wielded by people who are mean or have questionable motives, then the breaking down of ego can be problematic. But this theme of shame and humiliation, with Venus opposing Pluto, can totally be a thing right now. August 8th. Connect it back to December. It can be like any opposition with Pluto, especially in the third phase of Capricorn, it can make me think of, in Saturn sign, forced compliance. It's like peer pressure, but maybe from one person, or maybe from the administration. And with the Mars squaring Saturn right now, we have echoes of this time last year when Mars was opposing Saturn. And we had themes of being pressured by administrations and being pressured by our peers. Then on August 11th, Venus enters Leo, so breaks free from Pluto, but enters the clutches of Saturn. Saturn is in late Aquarius, so Venus won't oppose Saturn exactly until a little later. However, Venus opposes Saturn by sign. So it's like the besiegement of Venus from earlier in the year, February. This echoes that slightly, where there's like, oh, you thought you were out of the woods, but it's out of the frying pan and into the fire. It was Venus in a fire sign. And the themes here will be like, Venus in Leo wants to be seen, wants to be viewed, wants their tastes and proclivities to be on display, wants beauty and desirability to be seen and identified with. While Venus is in Leo, we can practice standing in beauty, whatever that means for you. And themes of courage and loyalty could be more highly valued. Venus in Leo places Venus at the center of the universe. The tastes and desires therein are lionized, celebrated. This could be showing off things like clothes and makeup techniques, or just like general animal magnetism, but not in the way that's like physical, the way that's like from the heart. And also with Venus in Leo, relationships and physical things and emotions pertaining to pleasure or bonds can be central or more identified with. With Venus entering Leo, beginning her transit towards exact opposition with Saturn, and on the same day, the full moon in Aquarius, we emphasize the themes of inner authority, versus external authority. Inner authority being inner authority with Leo, and the sun has been transiting Leo since July 22nd. And external authority with Saturn in Aquarius. Saturn has been transiting Aquarius since roughly March of 2020. So the full moon in Aquarius is August 11th. The dark moon in Aquarius was January 31st, 2022. Think of what in the Aquarius part of your chart you may have had a new beginning regarding back in late January. What now has peaked? What has come to fruition? And then how will you expend that energy until the dark moon in Aquarius in 2023? This full moon is conjunct Saturn, so it can feel kind of merciless. For more on Saturn and Aquarius, see my previous video. It's from about a month ago. It's called Price Action. I'll link it. Also, Pluto's transit of Aquarius is almost upon us, and I came across this diagram around this time last year from the technocracy researcher Allison McDowell. So if you're wondering what Pluto in Aquarius is about, this is what it's about. Anyway, with the full moon in Aquarius conjunct Saturn in Aquarius, if you feel disregarded, first start with how might you have been disregarding your own needs, or what needs haven't been met due to exile or division. There could be an experience of not being connected to something meaningful and feeling ostracized in that way. And we could also find solace and enjoyment of the absurd. Also, see my video where I talk about Pluto in Aquarius. It's from about 2 months ago, and it's called Cigarettes. I'll link it. The term austerity comes from a French term meaning harshness or cruelty, and a Latin root meaning severe, rigid, and even sour, which is interesting because in ancient texts, I think Saturn has, all the planets have flavors, and Saturn is bitter and sour. And Saturn can be severe and associated with rigidity, its structures, its concrete, it's the way things are. And Saturn is the planet furthest out, viewable by the naked eye, regarding severities or extremes. Extreme cold, specifically. Mars, the other malefic, being associated with extreme heat. I think of rationing with this lunation, this full moon, right on Saturn. Ration comes from a Middle English term meaning reasonable. So it's like, well, we just have to be reasonable. We have to be practical. Exterior authority, opposite the sun in Leo, knowing who it is and what it wants. Again, it's inner versus outer leadership, the themes of this full moon on August 11th. So we had this rebellion with Mars conjoining Uranus and Rahu. If we don't see it on the surface, it is there under the surface, something we might find out about later. We might find out about it during Scorpio season, in late October and November, and during eclipse season. What's happening now and during this lunation is setting us up for November, which also coincides with our midterm elections in the United States, if there are midterm elections. In November, when the sun is in Scorpio, the sun will be with the South Node. So there's a draining of power of the sun and of leadership. It could be like with Saturn in Aquarius, a takeover, although the sun is in the superior position. So what does it mean to have like a hollowed out leader and have that somehow connect to the corrupting, surprise, dredging up the latent and making it real quality of the eclipses. Next, the sun opposes Saturn exactly. This lunation takes place opposite the sun. But Venus trines Jupiter, so there's a silver lining, or a golden lining, with the benefics in fire signs. And the third quarter moon is August 18th.